This episode of the Hatmakers podcast is brought to you by Hatblocks Australia, makers of fine timber hat blocks and hat making tools.
My, what a peculiar place to have a party.
Welcome to the Tea Party, the Hatmakers podcast, where we connect with hatters from around the world, talk hats and hat making to build the community, and share tips and tricks to take your hat making to the next level. Wow. So sit back, pour yourself a brew, and settle in because here comes the show. On this episode of the Hatmakers podcast, we're chatting with Paul Ventress from Paul Ventress Bespoke Hatters. Based out of York, England, Paul has been making hats for over 12 years. His iconic tricorn pirate hats and Johnny Depp style fedoras have been long-time favourites of hat enthusiasts from around the world, and his signature style distressing techniques are second to none. In this interview, Paul gives us an insight into his world and generously shares many tips and tricks that all hat makers could benefit from. So listen on to hear Paul's story on this episode of the Hatmakers podcast. All right, Paul, welcome to the show.
Thank you very much. Thanks for having me.
Thanks for coming along. It's I've been a big fan of your work for many years, and finally great to have a chat with you.
No, it's an honour to be speaking to you.
So how about we start by telling everyone who you are and where you're from?
Okay, so I'm Paul Ventress, and I started Paul Ventress Bespoke Hatters, and I'm from York, which is in Yorkshire in the UK. That's where Boromir and Jon Snow come from, and that's why I sound like this.
And how long have you been making hats for?
Probably not professionally, but I think 12 years. I probably made my first hat just as a hobby type thing, but just making a costume hat to dress as a certain Caribbean pirate.
Which pirate might that be?
I can say his name because it's about me dressing up to Captain Jack Sparrow, but I avoid saying the name in reference to any hats that I make because there's a very territorial mouse out there that I don't want to anger.
Sounds like
Yeah,
we'll have to delve into that a little later. So your first hat was a pirate style hat?
It was indeed, yeah. I bought some leather on eBay that was, I think it was actually just leather someone had cut off an old sofa and just went for it. I think I made a hat block by filling a mixing bowl with plaster of Paris.
Wow.
And oh God, I think it took a month before I could get it out of the bowl. I think it was like so wedged in there. I remember whacking it upside down with a mallet till it finally came out. I think I managed to make 2 hats on it before it just crumbled.
Wow. And so your first hats were leather hats?
Yep, they were leather, yeah.
Did you have a pattern or something? Or how did you come about to finding the way to make it?
Well, I mean, the way I make it now is nothing like the way I made it then. It's completely different. That was purely just, I stretched the leather over this dome for the actual crown. The brim was just a flat brim, and I think I even put wire in the brim binding on that one as well, and that helped give it its shape because the leather that I used was just a regular chrome tan leather, so it's not the sort that you can wet and shape, so I had to put the wire in the brim to sort of fix the brim up. But yeah, it was just a regular oval flat brim folded up at 3 points tricorn hat.
Wow. And is that something that you have on the shelf as a memory of the first hat that you've made?
No, I sold it. So I made that one, and I had enough of the leather to make another one. So I think I put the first one up on eBay, and this is actually how it all started, really, because I put it on eBay, and it sold like really quickly. So I made another one with the rest of the leather that I had, and I think that's the one I wore to this Halloween party that I went to. And then, as you always do, when you first make something, you finish it and you think, great. Not long after, you start picking holes in it and going, well, I could do this better. So I was like, right, I'm gonna make another one. So that one went on eBay and it sold straight away. And that basically started the idea of, well, I can make hats and sell them. Because at the time, I was living in Germany and was recording an album with the band. And there was a lot of downtime, just tons of time sitting around when we're doing drums. I think recording drums, there's pretty much a whole month of me just sitting around with nothing to do. So I was like, right, I'm going to start making these and start selling them. And they all sold fairly quickly. So that was my side hustle. And I was like, right, I'm gonna do hats on the side.
So you're a musician by trade, is that right?
It is, yeah. Not so much anymore. I don't do particularly any professional work anymore. It's gone back to being for fun, which I actually now enjoy a lot more, because doing it professionally, people have this idea of what it's like to be in a band that's touring. It's all fun and drink and party. When you're on tour, you don't really want to drink and party. Because every day you're driving hundreds of miles, you're up till the early hours every night. You just want to get the job done, have a beer after you've played, and go to bed. So not so much anymore, especially since we're all a bit older. Having not made it big while we're younger, it's just impossible to do when you get older. You need to commit your whole life to doing it and be prepared to not earn a single penny. And at this stage in our lives, we've got a member of the band's got 2 kids, 3 of us are married. You can't do that sort of thing. If it's not stable and bringing in the money, you can't be that irresponsible and just be like, yeah, I'm just going to go out and play rock and roll and not make any money and just bring home a crate of free beer every evening.
Yeah. So you were a guitarist in this band?
Yeah, guitarist and singer.
All right. Unreal.
Yeah.
And then hats became your side hustle. So you kind of became professional hat maker straight away if you sold your first.
Yeah, pretty much. If you could give it that label. I mean, it's kind of professional hat maker. The hats weren't professional, but it was making money. So you could put that label on it.
And had you made costumes or anything like that before, or is this your first crack at it?
It's quite funny actually, because probably when I was around about 18, I mean, I always liked hats, and I went and bought a Christie's bowler hat that I would wear quite a bit as well, which is quite unusual. 22 years ago. And I really wanted a red one. I can't remember what music video it was. I don't know if it was an Eminem video or something where they kind of parodied Clockwork Orange, where they had the gangs, and there were some guys in a red bowler, and I was like, I want a red bowler. And at the time, you couldn't find them. There weren't really many custom hat makers, especially not in the UK, that you could find around about that time. So I actually bought some cheap felt, like the not actual felt. What's it made of? It's like some sort of polyester pretend felt.
Right.
And I stretched it over this bowler hat and sewed it all together to make it a red hat. It was shocking, but at the time I thought it was cool. So I kind of almost made a hat way before any of this really started. But I've made a few costume bits. But again, like I think the first sort of costume I made was a coat for pirate costume. I've made quite a few different costume bits since then, and I can sew. I can make clothing. I just don't do it very often because it takes me ages.
The hats are a little easier to do. So you've made your first pirate tricorn style hats, and then How did you transition into the fedoras and the other things that you do?
So it was just curiosity, I think. The more I made these pirate hats, and I was like, well, I like wearing hats. And I'd even bought like this grey fedora. And I thought, I do want to take this further. So I remember the day I ordered my first open crown block for making fedoras, and I rang up my block maker, which is Owen at Guy Moss Brown, and I was like, right, I need to get a fedora block, and he suggested which one to go for. It just went from there. As soon as I made one for myself, I was like, I absolutely love working with felt. This is so much easier than leather. It was just like forcing leather over a dome. That, you know, that takes a bit of work. Working with a felt, a lot more forgiving. So I just decided to buy all the size blocks, start offering fedoras. Obviously, I didn't know much about felt then, so they were very, very fuzzy fedoras. Hadn't even encountered the term pouncing at that time. So, do you remember the first block that you got? Do you remember the style that it was? Yeah. What, the first fedora block? I'm trying to think.
Yeah.
I mean,
it was an open crown, or was it?
It's the same as one of them, but the actual size, I think it's got a felt on it somewhere at the moment. It's got a hat body blocked on it, but yeah, it's one of the open crowns. I can't remember which number they call it at Guy Moss Brown. I think it's like their not SB, CB23. I think is their crown block number.
Nice.
And now I've got many of them.
So how long ago did you transition into making the fedoras?
I think it's probably 8 years ago. I think I probably did that first fedora. So it is quite a long time.
How did you go about learning how to do the felt fedoras rather than the pirate style hats?
So I kind of intuitively had an idea of what I was supposed to do, but I think I'm probably going to say the same thing everyone else says, which is you look on YouTube, it's like, right, felt hat making, and back then one guy popped up, and it was Nick Fouquet. So he had plenty of videos showing what he did. I watched quite a few of those. Just tried to get my head around, why is he doing that process? What is that process? Especially when I saw him sanding the felt, I was like, what is that? So yeah, that kind of kickstarted a lot of trial and error on how to go about working with felt, manipulating it. But as I said, a lot of trial and error since then, as I'm sure we all do, because until recently, there's not been much information out there on how this craft is done. And what information is out there is open to a lot of interpretation and taking things with a grain of salt as to what is the best and correct way to do it, which I don't think there is a singular correct way to do a lot of the things, but there are definitely some ways that are the best way to do it. Yeah,
indeed. So did you get any tips from the guys at Guy Moss? Is it Guy Moss Brown?
Yeah, Guy Moss Brown. Probably. I don't remember specifically, but I mean, I know that they are a wealth of knowledge. He's a second generation hat block maker, and they don't make hats to sell, but they're more than capable of making hats. So I don't remember if I got any, particular advice from them, but I probably did. I probably did ask some questions. I mean, there's been a few people over the years where, even up until fairly recently, that I've asked another hatter a question because I'm just like, right, what's this? I want to achieve this. How do I get there? I think it's probably only about 4 years ago or so, I really wanted to get my sweatbands so that they flare and lay flat against the brim. And I was like, well, I was already buying reeded sweatbands, sewing through the reed tape under the band, but I was just feeding the reed of each end back into the reed tape, and then they're just protruding out of the hat this way. And I was like, well, I don't want this. I know that you're supposed to have it so the stitching is away from the head. So actually, I've spoken quite a few times to Michelle, who's the master hatter at Herbert Johnson.
Okay.
And I asked her, she just told me straight away. She was like, yeah, you just need to get these ferrules. You cut you reed just a bit longer than the sweatband on each end, and then it creates that tension and forces the sweatband out. I was like, well, that's really easy.
Creates that little belt.
Exactly. So yeah, I've always been happy to ask a few other hat makers, what's going on here? How do you do this?
That's nice. That's such an amazing tip, isn't it? Because I felt the same when I first started making hats. They just didn't look quite right to me with the sweatbands. And then once you work out a ferrule, it's like, wow, it makes all the difference.
Massive difference. It's just clean, finished look. It looks and feels better. When you run your hand around it, you just feel much more quality, strength, stability. It just looks so much better.
I've seen Hornskov as well, and he kind of bends his over a little bit and just gives.
I do that as well.
Encouragement.
Yeah. So yeah, I go around and after I've put the ferrule in, I crease it. I actually use the back of a hammer to do that, so to get quite a strong crease in it, so it really gets that belled shape. There you go. There's a tip for free.
That's a tip, everyone. Yeah. Thank Paul for that one. Yeah, I won't ask too many of your secrets because you've also got some really beautiful finishes on those distressed hats.
Yeah. Distressed, having started off with these leather pirate hats and various other pirate hats, distressing's been a part of it since the beginning, because I still make loads of pirate hats for a lot of cosplayers, costumers, people that go to these pirate events like what they've got in the US, like Ren fairs. So distressing is something that I've put a lot of time and effort into. Various different methods. Like you said, yeah, there's definitely a couple of secrets to do that because I've spent too much money and too much time figuring things out just to give that away to everyone.
Yeah, you've got to destroy a lot of felts to get that look.
Too many. But I love distressing hats. It's my favorite. Is creating something that looks like it's got a story to tell. It's got a history. It's seen things.
Absolutely. I'm just looking through your page right now, and there's that really beautiful tricorn that you've got there. Are you still making those out of leather?
Yeah. So, I do some felt tricorns as well. So I've got 2 different Captain Jack leather tricorns on my page. That's what I call them. 2 different types of leather on there. So one of them is just a regular goat skin leather, and that's sort of my cheaper option. And then another one's using what's called a pull-up leather, which is a leather that's heavily impregnated with waxes and oils. So I don't know if you've ever worked with it before, but that's what creates that sort of cracked and crinkled effect. Have I got a bit here somewhere? I do have a bit here somewhere. If I can reach it without pulling everything off the desk. Yeah, it's this pull-up leather. So,
yeah, right.
Means that when you crease it, it leaves a lighter mark. So the oils and the waxes in the leather, they're kind of in free motion. so they move around. So you can create that really cool distressed look. Yeah, I love it. It's really cool. Really cool stuff.
Wouldn't it be nice if the felts were that easy to distress?
Well, yeah, exactly. Yeah, it would be nice because that is just, crinkle it up a bit, boom. It's just got this instant aged look. Definitely a longer process with the felts.
What kind of obstacles did you have to overcome to get to where you are now?
Many. I mean, this like we've just discussed, obstacles of not sure how to approach certain things, how to achieve a certain finish. I think this was discussed on your last podcast as well. Stiffening at the start was something. So there's a company in the UK that does millinery. I think it's from Parkin Fabrics, and they have a stiffener. It's kind of like it's nasty smelling stuff, and it's quite sort of gelatinous. It's pretty thick. I tried that for a while. You brush that stuff on, and not good. It doesn't react well to water, so it would often result in thick white marks in the felt that are pretty much impossible to remove. After that, I discovered, have you heard of Leco hats by Leco?
Yeah.
So I got their stiffener, the what's it called, Hydrolac B5 powder shellac, and I got some of that, diluted it with the isopropyl alcohol, and that worked absolutely brilliant. But it was costing a fortune. Buying these small bags, import duty from the US, shipping from the US, it was killing me. So I found the company that makes it, and I bought a 20 kilo bag, which also cost a fortune. But I think I've bought one bag, and it's still going after about 4 or 5 years.
Buy in bulk. That's what my wife always says. Buy in bulk.
Yeah. If we can, yeah. But yeah, stiffening was an issue. Pouncing, I'm sure every single hatter is going to say you've hit an obstacle with learning to pounce. Especially if you've just gone, right, I've got my electric sander. I'm going to put 600 grit on there, and I'm going to pounce this felt. And pretty quickly, you realise that is going to be a distressed hat. It's no longer looking very good. So yeah, learning what grits to start with, what types of felts are going to react in different ways, because they do different felts with different stiffening grades. You have to approach your pouncing differently and really carefully, especially if it's a clean hat. If you're going for a pristine clean hat, a lot of the time I will just pounce by hand now completely and not even bring out the electric sander, because it only takes a few seconds, and before you know it, you've got these nasty flat spots that they're there, and I haven't figured out a way to completely remove them at all. You can scrape away at them with a scalpel, but it's quicker to start again when you get to that point.
I've sometimes put felts like that into hot water.
Yeah.
And that kind of, if you sand a bit too hard and you get that white, or you kind of get through that felt to that stiffening.
Yeah, the layer of shellac.
And it just looks like blotchy everywhere. I've put them into hot or nearly boiling water, and that's almost removed it.
Right, I'm going to try that. I'm sure I've still got a few felts in here somewhere with the horrible marks on them, so that's going to be my afternoon. I'll give that a go.
Otherwise, distressed hats they are.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, make it look like it was meant to be.
So yeah, with your pouncing, with your felts, are you getting them pre-pounced now, or do you still kind of get raw felts that you have to pounce?
So it depends what I get. So a lot of my felts I'm getting from Tonac, so I'm buy bulk die lots from them. I mean, they come pre-pounced, but they need pouncing. So even though it's their what they call Lux 1 pounce, which is, I think, is their equivalent to special pounce. So it might be 1,200. But once you've steamed it, you've blocked it, it needs pouncing again. Those fibers have opened up; they're sticking out everywhere. Get quite a few Western weights from Millinery Warehouse, and I think a lot of those, they come pre-pounced. But I find everything that's pre-pounced, it's not finished. It still needs pouncing. Once you've blocked it, it still needs work.
Have you ever tried Willie's felts from Sunrise?
I have. Yeah, I've got one here.
Yeah, man, they're the only ones that I've found that don't need any pouncing at all.
Yeah, I mean, I've given that a 1,200, I think, pounce to finish that. Yeah, so that's the Nutria in almond for a customer.
That's a beautiful looking hat.
Yeah, it's cool, isn't it? I absolutely love working with those. I've done quite a few from them. Every time they're an absolute dream to work with. Absolute dream. I mean, the downside is whenever working with Nutria or Beaver, going back to Rabbit, it's kind of upsetting when you're pouncing it and you're just like, oh, it's just not the same. Well, it's not the same by a country mile. It's such huge difference in the quality of the finish you can get. I've had felts from all over the place. I've get quite a few from Chris from Hatmakers Emporium, Mr. Leg Bass himself. In fact, I just got one from him a couple of days ago because I know he's had a bit of a supply issue from FEPSA, so he's been waiting ages, and I think he's not getting any beaver. I think till next year or something now.
I was speaking to him today.
Right.
You said that, yeah, poor fella.
But yeah,
they bumped him at the last minute.
Yeah.
That was, yeah. Oh, well.
Yeah,
what to do?
FEPSA.
Felt shortages everywhere. Well, so do you think there's a felt shortage? Have you noticed? Or is it because there's so many hatters, or what's going on?
So I've never bought directly from FEPSA. I have tried. I think a lot of us
they're not so friendly.
I've spoken to them on the phone, I've emailed them, and I feel like I hit just a brick wall every time, which is a pain because they are regarded as the finest hat bodies you can get, and whenever I get hold of one, whether it's from Hatmakers Emporium or elsewhere, you do notice the difference in the quality, how tightly felted the fibers are. It is a tighter felt than you get from some of the other manufacturers. But yeah, so FEPSA ones, just a nightmare to get hold of, but if you can get them, they're great. Most of mine are from Tonac, and I've noticed their wait time has gone through the roof. So probably up until about a year ago, I was looking at 4 to 6 weeks for 24 units in a single die lot. The last time I placed an order, it shot up to 10 weeks, but I think they took 12 weeks. I mean, it's still not that bad compared to what Hatmakers Emporium's dealing with FEPSA, where it's a year wait. But I think the wait time has got longer. I don't know exactly why, but I mean, it could be a lot to do with issues in Ukraine, because especially with rabbit felt, because it's Eastern Europe where a lot of the actual pelts for the rabbit felts are coming from, and as a byproduct. So yeah, they are a bit more difficult to get hold of, and I've had a few customers recently where they're after something in a Western weight, and straight away I go look on Millinery Warehouse, find a colour that I think is going to match what they want, and I have to tell a customer they're coming back in stock on this date. If you want it, you need to jump now because they are gone. Like, quick, popular colours. I mean, it's like you can go on there one day and they've just restocked, and 2 days later they're all gone, just like that.
Yeah, I was thinking about them today actually, because their suppliers in the Ukraine, and so like Millinery Warehouse are kind of like the easy, like you can kind of get them now.
Yeah.
You know, everyone else, Winchester you have to wait.
Yeah.
Tonek you have to wait. Fepsa, who knows? So, and I was just thinking, like, if anything happens over in the Ukraine to their factory,
Yeah.
everyone's gonna have problems.
Yeah, that would be a huge issue. I think, from my understanding, I think they're based in the west of the country. I think I might be wrong. So I think currently far enough away from the front line. Excuse me.
Fingers crossed.
Yeah.
Yeah. So when you order with Tonak, and you just order one color, are you just getting like a lighter color and then dyeing those felts, or
No? So there's just a few colors that I use for my regular hats that I have on my website. Now, instead of Etsy store, on my website. So
brand new website.
So
congratulations, by the way.
Thank you very much. Yeah, so I'll just order 24 units of which color I sell a lot of. So black, the light grey ones, they're sort of the two main ones that are sort of they're not pre-made hats, but they're my regular designs that you can just order in your size. And I sell quite a lot of those. So they're just the two main colours I go with. For other colours, like I was mentioning with Millinery Warehouse, I'll just order in some one-offs when I need a specific colour. If a customer comes with an idea for a specific colour, just order them in as a one-off.
Yep. And are you doing mostly custom orders, or are you doing a lot of ready-to-wear?
So generally I do no ready-to-wear hats at all. So everything's made to order. So if I've got a ready-to-wear hat, it's usually because I've made it as a new design or tried something new, and I don't want it for myself. And then it'll just go up as a ready-to-wear, but it's extremely, extremely rare that I will have a sort of ready-to-wear, ready-to-ship hat. And
so what's your wait time like if I was to order one off your brand new website?
So I'm stating up to 15 weeks to give myself a little bit of extra room. But realistically, right now, I'm looking about 10 weeks.
Awesome. And so I noticed before that you were selling on Etsy.
Yeah.
Yeah. How did that go for you?
At the start, which was 10 years ago, great. It seemed the perfect platform for what I wanted to do, because previously I'd sold the first Jack Sparrow hats on on eBay, but I wanted to find somewhere that had better fees, and it was going to be a place where people are looking for handcrafted goods, and that's exactly what Etsy was when I started. I'd even bought a few things on Etsy that are just these unique, completely handcrafted, just beautiful things. But over time, they've completely changed what they stand for, the types of things that they sell. You go on Etsy now, and instead of finding lots of maybe handcrafted hats or handcrafted musical instruments, you just seeing printed T-shirts, stickers, printed mugs, things that are like print on demand and drop shipped items. So over time, they gradually changed their rules, brought in new policies.
It's a bit more like Alibaba.
Well, exactly. But it just became more and more restricting for the actual seller, and kind of felt like they're no longer prioritizing real handcrafters. It's these print on demand, quick turnover, making more money shops that were kind of getting prioritized, and all the real handcrafted sellers kind of just getting left behind. And it was just this last policy that was the it was the last nail in the coffin. And I can see the guys over at Hatbox Australia 2 weeks ago also made the same move for the exact same reason. It just doesn't work to have somebody place an order for something that's custom made where you might have to buy in X amount of materials, but you don't get paid until maybe 45 days, 90 days, or when you ship it. If it was just one hat and it was custom, so I had to order in the felt, it could probably, absorb that. But if I had maybe 3 or 4 orders, I'm looking at maybe £1,000, maybe almost $1,300 to spend on materials without getting paid, and it's just not doable. So it was time to wave goodbye to Etsy.
And do you think that people found you directly through Etsy, or were they going through, like, finding you through Instagram, and then your Instagram was directing them to Etsy?
So there's definitely a bit of both. I always used to keep an eye on all the analytics of where people were coming from. So I think I was bringing about 30 to 40% of my Etsy visitors through Instagram and Facebook. But Etsy search did, bring in a lot of visitors. I mean, maybe not a lot of people that would place an order, but I think a lot of people do search on Etsy, and one of the benefits of Etsy was the Google ads. So I would regularly show up really high in searches for images. If somebody, for instance, searched for one of my main styles, so Johnny Depp fedora, because I do a replica of his grey fedora, that would be within the first 5 images on a Google search with a link to my Etsy page. So I'm sure that brought in quite a lot of orders probably for those particular styles, because that's probably something that people search for fairly regularly. But yeah, so probably about 40% I was bringing in through social, and the rest Etsy was probably bringing in through their Google ads and through their own Etsy search.
So are you feeling confident about the transition to the website?
I'm feeling good, yeah. I mean, I wasn't feeling confident while making the website, because I wasn't prepared for kind of how in-depth that was going to be, having only ever sold previously on eBay and Etsy, where when you create a page, it's kind of created for you and you just fill in the blanks. Whereas doing this Shopify site, some people probably be laughing, saying, "No, Shopify is easy." Not for me. No, it wasn't easy for me. There's a lot of blanks to fill in. In fact, just building pages from scratch, especially when you've got an idea in your head of how you want it to look, and then sort of melding and doing the alchemy to actually make this website look like what's in your head was that was a big learning curve, really big. But it's out, and there are a few things that I know I need to sort out, but I'm confident with it. It looks good. I'll say good. I won't say excellent. I want it to look excellent, but at the moment it looks good.
You mostly captured the vision that you had for it?
Yeah, I think so. I mean, there's always other things that I'd love to do. I have a vision for a website where people can kind of create their dream hat. Almost like you can have a hat builder where you build a virtual hat where you have a silhouette of the shape, you choose the crown, you choose the brim, and then you start choosing the colours. I'd really love to do something like that, but that's way beyond my technological skills at the moment.
Need some of those kids that know how to build apps.
Yeah, exactly.
To give you a hand.
These kids and their apps.
Oh dear. And so with the website, if someone wanted to purchase one, are they paying the full price before it's made, or are they leaving a deposit? How are you sorting out
so it's
that kind of thing?
Full payment up front, Yeah, so I used to make the hat and then with no deposit, and then take the payment when it was ready to ship. And
What a gentleman.
yeah, or idiot, I think is probably more accurate. Yeah, I ended up with a few unwanted, unclaimed hats, and many lost hours and material with no payment. So changed to full payment up front, especially when I opened Etsy, because that's just the way that works. That was you buy the item, you pay for it. But I just implemented that with everything. It just makes everything simpler. Some people some can't afford it, some don't like it, but it's just the way I work. It guarantees I'm not going to have any time wasters, because there are time wasters out there. We've spoken a little bit about this.
Yeah. They're pretty easy to pick now.
Yeah, you can spot them. Yeah, like when I messaged you the other day, I just had this feeling about this guy, and I was like, "Have you spoken to this guy?"
Yeah. I kind of got that vibe from him straight away too.
Yeah.
So yeah, I've since removed his profile from my following list.
Good move.
Yeah.
But yeah, so it's full payment up front for all orders from myself these days.
Yeah, that's good. I think that's a great idea. I did that for a little while, and then I think then I wanted to put my prices up, so I felt a little uncomfortable about it.
It does feel uncomfortable, but I think you've just got to stand by your values, and especially when like yourself and others that have been doing it quite a while, and we do have feedback out there. People these days easily can go and see that you are going to receive, exactly what it is that you're paying for. I think when you've got that behind you, it's not a big thing to ask people pay up front, because we're making something completely custom for them. We're putting our time and money into it, so it should be their money.
Yeah, all right. I'm changing it up. Full payments from now on.
Yeah.
Yeah, awesome. So I was going to ask you, do you have a favourite type of felt to work with? But I think you probably already.
Yeah, definitely the Western weight Beaver Nutria is easily my favourite to work with. It's straight away, even before you block it, the feel of it. I just get this awesome feeling when I touch it. I just love it. I could sit and stroke it all day. But when you're blocking it, pouncing it, and then the finished result, there's nothing like it. So yeah, just heavy Western weight.
It's got a unique
Beaver.
smell.
Yeah, and the smell, it's brilliant.
It's got a unique smell to it too.
Definitely.
Yeah. What about dress weights? Do you use those at all?
So a lot of the regular designs that I do, like I mentioned with the Tonak felts that I get, I wouldn't say they're quite dress weights. They're about 170 gram. So they're in between. They're not quite Western, but they're not sort of your 1940s kind of dress weight. I don't really like working with really light 140 gram, 130 gram. Or even like some are like 80. I think I got an 80 gram beaver felt once. Oh my god! I mean, it's probably because they're actually difficult to work with, especially when it comes to sewing in a sweatband. When the sweatband actually becomes much more structural than the felt is. The felt's just all over the place. I find them quite difficult to work with. So it could be a little bit to do with that. I just shine away from it because I don't like working with these, because they're actually quite difficult to work with But for myself, I like a hat with a bit more structure, more rigid. And I think a lot of my customers do as well, something that's going to hold its shape. I mean, something like, if I was to make that from dress weight, that brim's, it's got a slight upturn. Because it's quite a wide brim, they're just not going to hold up. I like something with a bit more oomph, as we say in Yorkshire.
Yeah, I like a little bit of a wider, thicker, stiffer felt.
Yeah.
Do you ever have customers that say, "Oh, it's a bit too stiff or a bit too hard on my head"?
Haven't done for a while, but have done in the past. Yeah. And to be honest, I think that was actually a hat that I had completely stiffened the shit out of. Probably when I first got my 20 kilo bag of stiffener, and I just went all trigger, like happy with it, like, yeah, I can turn these really floppy felts into a brick. I think I probably had gone over top with the stiffener. Not so much anymore. I mean, a lot of that probably does come down to head shape. Because even if a hat's really rigid, if it's the correct shape, it's not so much of an issue. Whereas obviously if you've got a really stiff Western weight felt and it's not blocked to a near enough head shape for them, then it is gonna be an issue, especially if they're a longer oval and they've got kind of a regular oval. It's gonna give them pretty bad headaches and press on that forehead.
Yeah,
pretty hard.
Bit tight. Are you using a range of block shapes, or do you change the shape of the hat after you've blocked it?
So I block in the head shape. So for almost every style I've got a regular or slim oval, as some places call it, block, and I have the long oval equivalent. I've got a few that are in between. I think they're oval 36, I think is what they're referred to by the hat block makers. I know there's so many different ovals. None of us would have the money to have every single size in every single shape. But I often create like a band block as well. Because I send templates out to customers if it's going to be a style that's got quite a stiff felt. And if I offer it in both long or regular oval, I'll send out some templates for them to try on. And if they find that they're halfway between the long and regular oval, I'll basically make like a band block that's in the oval 36 kind of shape, so in between. So then after I've done the initial blocking, put the band block in, iron the brim flat again, and go from there.
So do you do the template thing with all your customers, or do you have a chat with a lot of them? Or
so it depends what they're buying. So like I said, I've got the 170 gram felt for a lot of the designs. They're pretty forgiving felts. They'll, you get a little bit of brim distortion, but that's where you find, if it's a fedora, you pop one side of the brim down and it conforms to your head shape. If it's something that's got to have a flat brim, or it's a Western weight, either if they've contacted me beforehand about the hat, I will get the templates out to them, or if they place an order, I will then get in touch with them and say, right, for this hat, we need to know what your head shape is, and I'll either email the templates out for them to print, or I'll send out a actual physical template.
Fantastic. And that's just something they can print out and then cut the hole out and then pop on their head.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, so I just basically scanned my hat blocks on the scanner, created a PDF, which is then, if it's printed out correctly, which it often isn't, so it's often printed out wrong, and they go, it doesn't fit. And I go, did you follow the instructions to print out at 100% actual size? And they go, no. Okay. Yeah, so they can print it out. I usually tell them, stick it onto a piece of card as well. Don't just do a piece of paper. Stick it onto something stiff, cut out the oval, try each one on, and it's instantly obvious. If one's better than the other, you've got someone with a long oval head putting a regular oval hat on, and it's rocking all over the place, doesn't sit. The amount of people are so surprised and amazed when they go, "Oh my god, I never realised this is why hats I've tried on in the shop never fit me." It's like, yeah, everyone's head is different, really different.
Do you use a conformature at all?
No, I mean, I'd love to get one, but not having a physical shop, I probably wouldn't have much use for it. If I was to open up a shop where I did custom fittings and people came in, it'd be a beautiful thing to own. Because I mean, they're a great tool, really practical. But I mean, they look great as well. That would just add a
traditional ones.
exactly. Yeah. Just like really nice piece of drama added to the hat making process. But currently, I just don't have use for them. It would just sit there gathering dust, and of the few that are left out there, they are not cheap.
Yeah. Yeah, definitely. Need to sell a few hats before you can afford one.
Definitely a few, yeah.
Yeah. I've seen a few new ones come out though, like semi 3D printed.
Yeah,
and then,
I think I've seen a few of those.
There's a guy from France that's made one.
Yeah.
And he's got a great, it's metal and I think 3D printed, like a metal frame.
Yeah.
And then he's got like a little part that sits over your head so that you're not kind of messing around with it's sitting, and it just sits nice and flush. It looks really good. I can't remember his web or his Instagram.
No.
I think it's maybe OLE or something like that.
Okay.
But yeah, really amazing. Yeah, there's some interesting new stuff coming out.
Yeah, definitely. I'll have to check that out because I'd just love to own one, but it's very rare that I make a hat for someone local. I do make a few. I have a few friends and acquaintances that I've made hats for that will come round and collect their hat. But in terms of actually doing in-person fittings and such, not going to happen till I get a real shop if I ever decide to go down that route.
Is that something that could be on the cards for you in the future?
Maybe. All depends. It depends on where I end up, or where me and my wife end up, should I say. Because at the moment we live in just outside the city centre in York, in this little terrace house. And it's the kind of house that you could imagine someone from a Dickensian novel would live in. Not the posh people, the poor people. These are, the common, really common houses in the north of England where there was a lot of industry and factories in the north of England. So in Victorian period, they just built hundreds of these workers' houses, basically. They're just two bedrooms, 2 rooms downstairs, and they're pretty small at the moment. This room, my workshop, is one of the bedrooms, so I've taken over the whole bedroom to be the workshop. Can't really invite people around here. Can't have a physical shop here because it also needs to be a home. But maybe depends where we move. There is a hat shop in York called the Hat Shop, and they mostly just sell Christie's, ladies' hats. Because there is a big horse racing event in York. It's one of the bigger, more popular horse racing. So that hat shop probably does well with that kind of thing. If I was to open a shop here, I think I'd be bust and bankrupt in no time.
My town's the same. It's kind of a little beachside retiree centre, and not much happening here too. Yeah,
just the business rates that they charge. Because York, have you ever heard of York?
I have heard of York. Yeah,
because most people will have done, because it is a really famous historic town. Probably second to London, really, in the UK in terms of how its historical significance. So it's very touristy. So we get a lot of tourists, which means the shops in town pay an enormous tax bill for having a shop in town is notoriously expensive, as are the houses. Like everything here is really expensive. So opening a shop here, no. If I could live somewhere with a bit more of a calm, relaxed vibe that would have, people with similar sort of interests, that could probably work, but we'll have to see. For now, it's just online.
You got more access to people online anyway.
Exactly.
Really?
Yeah.
And then you've got the freedom to not be at your shop.
Yeah. Exactly.
which is one of the main benefits.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah. Working from home, just having my workshop in here is great. It means that the dogs hardly ever left on their own. So I can check on them, get them out whenever needed. I can stop whenever I want. I can have a break and just watch TV if I need to just completely clear my mind and go somewhere else for 15, 20 minutes. Yeah, it just makes things easy.
You recently got married.
Yeah, I have. Very recently.
How was that?
It was amazing. Absolutely amazing. So yeah, we got married in May. Couldn't have asked for better weather. The perfect day in terms of weather, and just the perfect day all around. After months of planning, because we planned everything ourselves, we didn't have a wedding planner. I say we, it was mostly Amanda planned everything. I did my best, but I think I was swimming with my head just above the water with the planning. I was like, oh my God, this is... I just did not expect it to be so complicated to bring everything together, but it all came together. We had the best day. It was just amazing. Just amazing. I recommend it to everyone. Get married.
I saw at the reception there was a little bit of music playing, and there was one hell of a guitar solo that you busted out.
Well, yeah, with a few errors, but I allow myself those few errors. It'd been a long day, so decided to perform with my own band that used to be our sort of full-time job. Did a few of our own original songs for crowd pleasers for our mega fans that most of our friends are, but we knew we had to play some like proper party bangers, classic rock songs, and decided that I was going to attempt to learn the guitar solo for Beat It, played by Eddie Van Halen, which was quite a decision in the end.
It's not a small feat by any means.
No, it wasn't a small feat. I think I'd decided a year prior that I was going to go for it, and I told the band, and they all looked at me like, there's a guitar solo in that, right? That's not very easy. But yeah, I just put in some hours on the guitar and just about got there. I think just about.
I was blown away when I saw it. It was incredible. Yeah,
thank you.
Yeah, I think anyone who plays guitar was a little bit jealous.
Yeah,
of that. Yeah, it was an incredible performance, and at your own wedding.
Yeah,
awesome.
I know. Oh, God, it just felt like I had 3 areas of stress that day. First one was, shit, I'm getting married. Like an actual ceremony. I've got to get through that without passing out, breaking down in tears. Next was the speech. And then even after then, everyone else was like, job done. Best man was like, I've done my speech. That's my job done. But I still had to nail that guitar solo. Even though the best man is the bass player in the band, but hey, it's just bass. But
does he play with a pick or with his fingers?
A bit both, actually. Mostly with the pick, but he does play with fingers on some things as well. Whatever suits the tune,
suits the song.
Yeah. But yeah, it was awesome. And then after playing the set, I finally got to have 2 or 3 beers, I think, and then that was it. The the night was over, the whole day was just a blur. She's just gone.
How awesome.
Yeah.
And then the rest of your lives together.
Exactly. Yeah, it's brilliant.
Yeah. Lovely. I wanted to ask you, do you have a favorite hat that you've made?
Sorry, 1 second. I've just realised my laptop is shouting at me because I've not plugged the charger in. Okay, it's happy now. It's happy. I've plugged it in. A favourite hat? That changes, I think. I think at the moment I'm wearing this one quite a lot. Really enjoying wearing this.
How would you describe that one?
I would describe this one as Witch Doctor meets Victorian Tramp. I'm going with Witch Doctor on that one, but yeah, it's kind of like a Victorian style top hat, squashed, distressed. It's got a crow's foot, some crow's feathers. So this one at the moment's my flavour of the month.
Yeah. What size hat do you wear?
So this is quite an interesting one. So at the moment, you're already intrigued because I'm saying at the moment, 57. So about just over a year ago, me and Amanda got COVID, and about a month or so after COVID, we both noticed we're losing a lot more hair. And seriously, when I was washing my hair, I was getting balls of hair like this every single time. Before COVID, I was wearing a size 58. And then I noticed that all my hats started slipping down onto my ears. I was like, what is going on? And we Google searched about losing your hair after COVID. And apparently it's a common thing, losing a lot of hair. I mean, luckily I've got loads of hair and nobody really notices, but in terms of like obviously how dense my hair is, it's taken my head size down a little bit.
Wow. You've actually got some of the most luscious locks in the industry.
In which industry? In the hatting industry?
In the hat making industry, yeah. There's a lot of us fellas with curly long hair.
Yeah.
But I think that yours are probably the best. Also, what's his name? Nomad from Austria had some really nice locks, but I think he's cut all his off.
That's a shame.
How do you take care of yours? What's the secret?
I don't do very much. Seriously, wash it as little as possible. Put it up a lot of the time, out of the way. It's something we've got to address. Okay, so when we're doing our Instagram videos, and we're there, and we've got a hat on, and we've got our hair down, wearing a nice shirt, making hats, blocking. Don't do that, do we? Or no.
Only when you pull the camera out. Yeah.
Only when you get the camera out. When we're actually working, scruffy clothes, some hair out the way, no hat. Yeah. But it's what we've got to do. People expect us to be wearing a hat when we're promoting hats. But yeah, so I don't do very much with the hair, to be honest. I mean, it looks different every day. I mean, as you know, having longer, curlier, wavier hair, it's never the same. It just does what it wants on each day,
depending on the weather.
Exactly. Which here is usually raining.
Oh, so sad.
That's the north of England. It's wet.
Nice weather. Sometimes I wish that we had more of that, because when it's beautiful and sunny outside, I live just 500 meters from the beach.
Yeah.
And I look out my studio and it's beautiful, but I'm stuck inside this little dungeon, and I really want to be outside. If it was raining, I wouldn't feel too bad about it.
Yeah, it's double-edged sword, really, isn't it? But yeah, here we're having a bit of a weird summer, which is why I think we got so lucky on our wedding day back in May, where weather was perfect. It wasn't too hot, but I don't even think we saw a cloud all day. But because it was still sort of mid-spring, it wasn't so hot that everyone in the suit was just dripping. But this summer this July, it's just rained nearly every single day. Like outside, the temperature feels like autumn for us at the moment. It's really strange, especially when in the rest of Europe they're experiencing this insane heat wave. It's causing, well, it's really bad. Like I've seen all the fires and stuff that are happening in Italy from it in Greece. So they've got this crazy heat wave, and we've basically got an early autumn. It's just skipped summer altogether.
The weather's not too kind to England, is it?
It can be, but we're not known as a suntan holiday destination. We'll put it that way.
So you've got your witch doctor style hat on. How would you describe your style of hats in general?
I think I cover such a varied sort of spectrum of different hats, but in terms of like, you have your opinion on how you view yourself, and for me it's rustic, bit of drama. Like I said before, something's got a bit of a story. That's how I see myself, is in my style, something that's got a bit of age and a bit of drama to it. Rustic, distressed, beaten up, on its last legs kind of hat.
They have a real authentic look to them, and I know like you sell your like Johnny Depp fedora, but I think for me, looking at your hats, it's like they really capture that style, you know. And he's got that look that I think as a hat maker, like that's kind of what you want to be able to capture.
Yeah,
and I think you do it perfectly.
It's pretty much where I started with the fedoras, was making kind of a replica of his grey hat. And the reason for that is I kind of knew I already had an audience, because a lot of these Captain Jack cosplayers, I would notice that when they're not dressed as Jack, they kind of dress like Johnny. And they might have bought a pirate hat from me, and I was like, well, I've kind of already got these customers there that have bought this pirate hat that might like this light grey fedora hat. And that's exactly how it all started, really. They bought a pirate hat, and then they bought the Johnny Depp fedora. So I spent quite a bit of time really studying the pictures of his fedora. And it didn't just have, well, at least when it's on his head, it didn't have just the standard upturn. It kind of had this little dip down before it dips up. And that's probably more because the hat's too small for him. And it had been kind of forced on his head, that then gives it that kind of bowed down. But I had Owen at Guy Moss Brown make me a set of brim blocks that had that shape, just to try and replicate it as closely as possible. And other than my Captain Jack tricorn, the grey Johnny Depp fedora is my biggest seller over the last sort of 5 or 6 years. Sell so many of them. Well, it's awesome. It just means I'm constantly cleaning the workshop, because that is a really light grey. And if you look at it wrong, it gets a dark stain on it.
Devastating.
Yeah.
Do you use a lot of flanges and brim type blocks in your work?
Pretty much everything. I don't do many flat brim hats. Very, very rare I do an actual flat brim. I think out of the hats that I have on my website, there's only one hat that doesn't use an actual brim block, and that's the Derby, which I curl with the shackles and then shape by hand from from a flat brim. I think nearly everything else I do on some sort of brim block. I like flat brims, but I like a good shaped brim. I like a nice upturn. Gives you a bit of an option to pop, snap the brim down or pop one side down. Gives you versatility, a few options.
Yeah, it's nice to to see hats move beyond the flat brim. There's so much to do with the brim, really.
Yeah.
Well, that can be done with a brim. Do you have a favourite brim width?
10 centimetre for myself. Yeah, if I'm going for a wide brim, I like big hats. I like tall crowns, wide brims. Even though I'm not wearing even for a topper, that's still 8 centimeters. For me, that's a short brim now. Is an 8 centimeter brim. That's what most people would class as a wide brim. But I wouldn't even wear a fedora with a brim as short as 8 centimeters now. It's 10. That's my happy place, is 10 centimeter brim. Oh, sorry. You work in inches? That's 4 inches.
I like a 4-inch, 3.5 to 4-inch brim.
You use inches when talking about brims. I remember from your podcast last week.
From the last one, yeah, and the same with crowns as well.
Yeah.
I do centimeters for the size, but for the crown height, I'll use inches, and for the brim width, which is crazy. What about crown height? How high do you like to go with the crown?
So minimum for myself, 14 really. 14 centimeters. So I offer a few different crown heights on all my fedoras that I sell. So I have risers for the blocks. So if somebody orders the hat, they can choose either it to be 12, 13, or 14 centimeters tall. But for myself, I like a nice tall brim.
That's a 5.5-inch brim.
Crown, yeah, right. There you go. Yeah. Sorry. Inches.
Yeah. So 14 centimeters, you said?
Yeah, 14 centimeters, yeah.
Yeah. Just getting out the old Google conversion. Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, that's a nice amount of height.
But I do few, like the tall boy hat that I do, where it's kind of, the crown's kind of bashed a bit like a campaign, but without the back of it done. So you just put the campaign sort of 2 dents in the front. So you actually end up peaking the crown pretty much at the top of the block. So they end up more like, if I want the tallest, about 16 centimeters.
That's
You're gonna
6.5.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So that's a tall one. Hence the name, the tall boy. Which is definitely not me. I'm a short boy myself.
Really?
Yeah. Only 5'6". So I'm only little, which is why a tall crown makes me look taller.
What's 5'6" in centimeters?
169, I believe.
There you go. All right. Yeah, I'm about 5'10", just a little bit. What else? Oh yeah, what other hat makers have inspired you along your journey?
Quite a lot, yeah. I mean, initially, like I said, I watched Nick Fouquet videos, and that kind of got me started, and kind of showed me what sort of things are possible, even though I'm not a fan of his work these days, or his work ethic and copyright enforcement. But it's his. I appreciate his early stuff. I think some of his early hats were actually really cool. I'm just not so keen on what he does these days. But as a starting point, because there wasn't really much else around that was easily accessible, that definitely gave me a kickstart and, like I said, an idea of, oh, this is the sort of thing you can actually do, and there are people that like this kind of thing. But I follow loads on Instagram. I printed out a list because I knew you'd ask this question. So I was I don't want to forget someone. So Blakesby, I love what he does. He's cool.
Good old Blakesby.
He's great. He's cool.
He's a pillar.
See, I really appreciate the hatters that I see as really skilled hat makers. So to some people, the hat might look a bit boring, not their kind of style, not the distressed. But as a solid hat maker that makes a really good quality hat, I mean, Blakesby, he's right up there. He knows his craft. And I personally love his hats. I wouldn't wear them with my style, but I love what he does. There's Colby Hebert.
Yeah, the Cajun hatter.
The Cajun hatter. I love Hat Butcher. The Hat Butcher, he's cool.
Yeah,
I feel like I identify a bit with his hats. I'd wear his hats. They're awesome. I've got yourself on here, mate. Got yourself. You're there.
Oh, thank you.
Yeah.
Fifth on the list. What?
It's not in order of who I appreciate the most. I like watching blade hats in Spain work.
Oh yeah, he's jumped up a lot there. He just made a hat for Slash.
Yeah, I saw. Yeah, so he's cool. I've spoke to him a few times recently. He's a cool guy. He's a metalhead like me, so I can identify with what he's doing. Makes some cool looking hats. Don't know how he's got his Instagram profile to where it is. If you're listening, let us know. We all want to know.
Give us some tips.
How do you do your Instagram? Matt at Sierra and South. I loved his podcast with you. It was cool. We've had a couple of short discussions in the past. I'd love to go see him one day. Hopefully, next time if I'm down in London, could hopefully hook up and talk hats with him. But he makes some cool looking hats. He knows what he's doing as well. He's another hatter that has gone deep into the traditional techniques of how to best make a good quality hat that is gonna last. This one probably won't be a surprise. Gunnar Fox. I mean,
oh yeah, that's who I thought you might say.
Yeah, man,
he's the coolest, huh?
He's great. I mean, he not only does all the drama on his Instagram where he makes it look cool, he's also like really good at his craft, making insanely good quality hats. I'd say definitely one of my main influences, and I have to be careful because I always want to make his hats. I'm like, no, I can't.
Yeah,
I know. I've come close once or twice. And I'm like, no, that's too much. Like I've replicated one of his hats just for myself because I loved it so much. It's not a hat I'll make for anyone else, but I love that hat, and I'm gonna make it for me.
Oh yeah. Good on you. Have you had any dealings with him? Have you had any chats or conversations?
No.
He's a bit of a ghost, isn't he? Like,
I mean, he's been absent on Instagram for a while because I always check in to see if he's come up with something new design. But it seems like it's been a long time since he posted anything. But in the work that he does, I mean, he's probably busy making hats for movies because it's what he spends a lot of his time doing.
Do you have any thoughts on the finishes of his hats? Because in his photos, they look like they're like, I don't know if they're wet or they're like just covered in some kind of like full-on shellac, but they've got they look really hard.
Yeah, I have a lot of thoughts on it, and
also can't give those secrets away. We'll talk about that later.
Yeah. I've really delved deep in trying to get there, and I think probably a lot of us have had to go with just rubbing beeswax into the felt, and while you get that initial look, it doesn't last. It's a bit tacky. It's not going to be great in hot weather. So I've spent quite a lot of time experimenting with lots of materials and substances and alchemy to try and figure out a way to get that kind of look, because I absolutely love it. I love that look. I feel like I've come up with some finishes that are close, but his do just have this, like I said, shiny, but it looks wet. So I don't know if he's finishing with a resin over the top. I don't know.
He's got some great shapes too.
Those
fedoras with those extra deep dents.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah, exactly. This is where I said I've come close to, too close probably, to copying one of his designs, where I've done these hats with these deep dents. They look so cool. I mean, I don't think he technically owns that. I'm trying to justify it. He doesn't own that design. We can all rock that look, as long as we don't.
Enough of us copy it.
I mean,
enough of us copy it.
No, we spoke about copying again, didn't we? A couple of weeks back with that same one customer, which is why I reached out to you saying, this guy wants me to make your hat. Have you spoke to him? So, but yeah,
there's a few things that seem to go around, like it's kind of one person's, and then all of a sudden someone does it, and then once somebody sees that it's done, then it kind of gives permission to somebody else, and then next thing you know, everyone's got a skull in the crown of their hat.
Yeah, exactly. It becomes public domain. It's out there.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, yeah, Gunnar Fox, awesome hats, massive inspiration for myself. Love what he does. He's someone that's at the top of his game. Is he kind of second generation hatter, isn't he? I think it was his uncle or his grandparents that
grandfather, maybe, yeah.
That was making hats for like John Wayne and all sorts in all the old Western films, which that's not a bad place to start, really, is it? With that kind of experience in the house. But yeah, Gunnar Fox, I've got on my list. Got Chris, so Mr. Legbass.
Mr. Legbass?
Yeah, he makes some cool hats. He's got vision. He comes up with some awesome, completely unique, instantly recognizable style. Whenever you see one of his hats pop up on a Google search, like, yeah, I know who made that.
Or even on those Chinese sites that steal the images. Yeah.
Ridiculous. Yeah, it's insane. Yeah. I had to message him the other week about that, because I saw one of his hats and I was like, that's one of Chris's hats, but that's not his website. I'm seeing more and more of it at the moment. Like these fake websites. I've had to notify Google and Pinterest of loads of my images. Whenever I see anyone else's, I always report it. So Blade Hat's got hit hard. That's probably a nasty byproduct of him being so successful on Instagram, is that people are now really trying to rip him off. So I see loads of Facebook shops pretending to sell his hats. But yeah, Mr. Legbass hats, seen those. Some of mine, hat butchers, they're just everywhere. Saying you can buy this hat for $40. It's like you can't buy the felt for $40.
I saw that Ugly Outlaw had someone send him a message asking where the hat was. And they bought it off a Chinese site because they were using his images.
Oh dear. Yeah, that's another hat maker that's not on my list, but I love their hats. They are cool. Really good hats.
He's got a nice style. I'll just go back to Chris for a second, because Chris, Mr. Legless, he's been around for quite a while too, much like yourself.
Yeah.
And he's done some really amazing work. I was always shocked at the quality of his stuff, and he continues just to kind of get better and better.
Yeah. His hats just look finished to perfection. and just the amount of detail he goes into. So not only does you've got his base hat, you've got your felt, and it looks amazing, but all this leather work that he's doing, all this time that he's putting into a like insane amount of detail on these hats, it's just at another level of craftsmanship and skill. It's just insane.
Indeed. All right, who's next?
So Honskov, another quality hat maker. Not doing much on the sort of distress side and artistry, but in terms of like making a solid quality hat, he knows his stuff. He's making good quality hats that are going to last a lifetime. Awesome. I love watching him work. And his social's really good as well. His videos, really nice, clean look, like completely complements his brand. Yeah, I felt sorry for him when the whole matchstick thing. It was shit.
Yeah, maybe you should explain that for all the newcomers that maybe didn't catch that a few years back.
So, as far as I know, Peter Honskov, he used to put a matchstick in all his hats. I think it was his grandfather collected matchboxes or something of the sort, and then Honskov sort of adopted all his collection and would put one matchstick in the bow on the hatband for every hat, sort of to honour his father or his grandfather. And then along came Nick Fouquet, who filed him with a lawsuit as he'd copyrighted putting a single match in the bow on a hatband. And yeah, I can't imagine what that felt like, having built this branding idea that wasn't just a branding idea, was also sort of really personal to him, to be forced to remove that and also have to remove all his images, redo all his marketing from a different angle. I really think it's completely out of order to do that. I don't feel like having a match in a hat is something that's owned by anyone. I think that's something that goes way back. People were putting matches in the hats, putting all sorts of things in the hats. I don't think it should be something that can be copyrighted. I think that should be something that is, that's for everyone.
I was thinking about trademarking a feather in the hat, so no one else can put a feather in a hat.
I know, exactly. It's like I put the pin in most of my custom hats. So I put this pin in here, and it's part of my logo, which I don't have on hand, but it makes the V when the pin's open, part of my logo. I'm not going to attempt to copyright putting a pin like that in my hat, because I'm not going to be the first person that's put a pin like that in a hat. I can't claim it. Sorry?
Thank you, because sometimes I put a pin in the hat.
I see plenty of other hatters putting pins in the hats, and it's not mine. I might use it as kind of like my logo, but I'm not going to attempt to put a legal claim on that being mine and mine alone, because I don't think it's right to do that. But Nick Fouquet had other ideas, which I think was probably the turning point where a lot of people stopped respecting him, and see him in a different light.
Yeah, it was an interesting time. I remember seeing that post from Peter, and it was just the burnt matches on the table, and then all his images were gone, and then his little story about what happened. It was pretty interesting at the time.
Yeah.
But he's definitely refined himself and has made his own mark.
Yeah,
for sure. And I think it's probably better without the matchstick, so there is no comparison.
Well, exactly. I mean, he showed his resilience. I mean, that's good. There's been an artist and making hats, but when we're in this, we are in a business, and I think he really showed, like, actually, you know, he's not just a good hat maker. He's got his business head screwed on. He just got over that hurdle, and you know, he's one of the names out there that most people will know when talking about a custom hat maker. Fantastic hats, amazing marketing, clearly runs a tight ship on his business, and it's a family business as well, isn't it? It's him and his wife. She takes care of the back end, and he's in the workshop, which I think is really cool.
How lovely that would be.
Yeah, we've discussed it. Maybe one day, if we can get things to a certain point, it'd be great to just me and the wife run this business. She can deal with all the Instagram messages, and I don't have to. That'd be awesome. I can just be in the workshop, burning my fingers, and yeah, it'd be great.
Is there anyone else on that list?
Yeah, there's a couple more. So Michelle at Herbert Johnson, she's a great hat maker, and like I said, I've approached her before for advice and tips, and she's always given me advice whenever I needed it. And they've just completed the hats for, well, they completed them a while ago, but the film's out now, the new Indiana Jones film, so they made all the hats for the new one, because Herbert Johnson, I think, made the first movie, or maybe the first two movies back in the day, and then they were approached again to make the hats for the new film, which is pretty cool. There's a guy are they in Indonesia, Malaysia? Hit Hat, can't remember exactly where they are.
Yeah, he's over in Bali.
Yeah, in Bali. Yeah, I follow those. Always love seeing their hats, and just those guys in general just play music, and it's cool. Those guys are cool. I love watching those guys. I've got to mention last guy on my list. So we've got a newcomer to the hat making world, and he basically lives in the next town down from me in Leeds. So it's Dean Newman. So Newman Hats. He's just started his sort of hat making journey a year or so ago. I can see he's got his website up now. Spoken to him quite a few times. I think we're going to go for a beer sometime soon, I think, and talk about hats.
Did you help him out at all along the way?
I think so. I think he's asked me a few questions. There was probably a few questions where he's asked and I said, I can't tell you that. I could tell you, but I'd have to kill you. But yeah, I think I've pointed him in the direction for felts and a few bits and bobs as far as I can remember. But yeah, we've had a few conversations.
Yeah. I don't know if you can hear my baby crying in the background.
Just about,
yeah. Yeah. And what about, do you have someone that you would like to make a hat for, either in the past or the present?
I mean, it come to no surprise to me on that. I'm a bit of a Johnny Depp fan, which is why I've made so many replicas of his hats. It'd be cool to put a hat on that head. That'd be nice. He's well known for having a lot of hats, and it'd be really cool to make one for the guy.
Absolutely. Have you seen Roberto in Italy? Just made him one. Oh, I was jealous.
Have I seen what? Sorry.
There's a hat maker in Italy named Roberto.
Yeah.
I'm just got to check his last name. I think it's Lucci. Yeah, Roberto Lucci.
Yeah.
And he just made Johnny Depp a hat.
Has he? I suppose he won't be in the market for a new one anytime soon then. Never mind.
Well, he always needs new hats. But I think you had a photo of one of your Jack Sparrow hats.
Yeah. On
a customer, and he was standing next to Johnny Depp.
Yeah.
And the hat that Johnny Depp was wearing is one of Roberto's.
Right, okay. I see. Yeah, and now, I've had a few of my customers that dress as Captain Jack that have got VIP to go see him, and they go dressed as Captain Jack. And then I think a few of them have even asked me if I can make the hat that Johnny's wearing in that picture. But I didn't know if it was a a vintage hat or if it was a new one that's been made. So I'm gonna have to tell them no. If it was vintage, fair game. If someone's just designed that and made that, at least I know where to send them for getting the actual hat made.
Roberto Lucci, he's a cool dude. He's a young fella, but he's really given it a good go. And I think he's like up there. He's always doing something spectacular in Italy.
Yeah,
he's mostly Italian on his site, so he's just kind of sticking to his little market.
Yeah,
but yeah, he's a really cool dude.
I have to check him out.
But yeah, I'm totally jealous. I'd love to get a hat on Johnny.
Yeah, it'd be great, wouldn't it?
In the beginning, I wanted a hat on everyone. Now I kind of don't care so much. But then every now and then you see someone wearing a cool hat from someone else, and you're like, ooh,
yeah,
that would be nice.
It would. It's not even for the exposure of it. It just kind of that acceptance and just having a hat on that person's head would be the seal of approval. Like, I make cool hats because this guy I think is cool is wearing it.
Yeah, indeed. Have you made some hats for people that you look up to or that you've kind of wanted to put on?
I've made some hats for some, I say, semi-famous people. So I made a couple of hats for the singer from a band called the Fratellis. So I don't know if they're anything outside the UK, but they're a Scottish sort of indie rock band that have been going for a long time. A few years ago, I made a couple of different fedoras for their singer. I made a hat for like this. He's like a crooner type singer. He's really famous over here. He's called Alfie Boe.
Alfie Boe.
So he does like musicals at the West End. I think he does all sorts of like big sort of jazz band sort of singing, musical kind of singing. I made him about 3 hats. And there's a guy called Ben Fogle who's like an explorer kind of guy who's on TV here in the UK quite a lot. He does expeditions to places, but he also does a TV show that's basically on the BBC in the mornings about a safari park where they just go and talk about all the animals in this safari park that we've got here in the UK. I've never seen him wearing the hat on TV though, which is a bit of a shame. But he got like kind of an Indiana Jones vibe hat, same sort of sable colour, centre crease bash. He just said he wanted like an Indiana Jones explorer hat. I hadn't actually figured out that it was him when he ordered it. So I'd seen the name and it was Ben Fogle, and I hadn't put 2 and 2 together because he's kind of a household name over here. But it's only when I sent him a message, I think when the hat was just about ready, saying, "Oh, your hat's just about finished. Here's some pictures." And the reply was from him, "Oh, I'm just in the Antarctic at the moment. I'll message you when I'm home." I was like, Antarctic? And I was like, oh my God, I think this is Ben Fogle from TV. Lo and behold, I went and checked his Instagram and he was in the Antarctic. I was like, oh my God, it's him.
That's incredible. And he's got service down there, phone coverage. That's incredible.
I don't know. I don't know how he did it.
Yeah, that's cool. Yeah, it's nice to I like the whole like music scene. I like the explorer outdoor adventure scene.
Yeah.
There's like when you kind of think about where hats can be and where they go, like they're kind of like top on the list.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. I mean, musicians, especially rock musicians, wearing a hat. Loads of guitarists want a cool hat that's like their signature hat, like Slash, like Jimi Hendrix, Stevie Ray Vaughan. They've all got this cool signature hat that gives them this silhouette. And then adventurers, I mean, it's a practical thing, having a good hat. If you're outdoors, keeps the sun off, keeps the rain off. It's a cool thing to have, and Indiana Jones looks cool. So you gotta have a cool adventurer hat.
And so what do you love most about hat making?
I love everything about it, actually. But the just the final finish when it's done. I absolutely love it. When you've had this idea in your head, if you're coming up with something new, and it's a process making a hat. It takes time. You have to do a bit, and you have to sit it down, let it dry, leave it. That anticipation of getting that vision into a physical hat, when you finally get it, I love that moment when you just look at what you've made and think, I actually made this. And I think a lot of people forget that you should, really congratulate yourself on achievements. So I try to take a look at my work when I finished it and just think, I made this. I taught myself how to make this. So I just love that moment when you've got that finished product in hand that you can appreciate and then put it in a box and send it off to someone else.
Yeah. And get that cash sooner now that you've got your own website instead of waiting for Etsy to
exactly
deposit into your bank account.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah, there's something special about making something from nothing and bringing something to life, especially when you've had to learn yourself how to do it. I think there's a real journey. I think especially for the guys like you who have been doing it for so long. Before there was too much information, and there's still not a lot of information. A lot more reels now than back then, but
definitely,
to really discover that and work it out for yourself and do the hard yards, and then to be where you are now, it's pretty impressive.
It's just always a sense of accomplishment and achievement. Being able to make something, because I feel kind of similar about hat making to making music. For me, there's this real sort of relationship between the two, and I feel like I approach my hat making in a very similar way I approach to sort of making music. I just kind of, it's like just jamming with ideas sometimes. Like occasionally I have an idea of a hat straight away, start to finish. I know what it's going to be, but a lot of time I'm just going to go, I've got this basic idea of the shape, and I'll just start, and then I might just rummage around in boxes of materials and go, what's going to look cool, and just playing with ideas. And when you get to that final result, as you've just said, making something from nothing, just these bare bones, and creating something unique that you can be proud of, and hopefully other people want to wear.
Absolutely, I love that.
Yeah, just jamming with ideas. I'd say pretty much most of my designs have been trying something that I didn't know was going to work, or an idea that I didn't have that morning, but by the evening I'm like, this is now my new thing. I've just discovered this, and now I'm just going to do this. This is cool. I just love it. It's just, you can go anywhere with it. You just explore with it. And there's the only downside is how much money you have to throw into materials if you're just going to start experimenting with things. But just that freedom to do whatever pops into your head and just have this really cool, unique hat at the end of the day. It's just the best feeling.
Well, you make it look pretty easy.
No, we all know it's not.
Do you have something that you'd like to share for maybe up-and-coming hat makers? Some any tips or advice, some encouragement?
I would say, and because I've had a few people ask me about this, if you are pouncing and you're also stiffening, don't stiffen before pouncing. You'll be really, really angry with yourself if you do, because that will just open up a whole can of worms in terms of the issues we were talking about earlier, getting staining on hats. Yeah. I'll echo the wise words of Sierra and South, Matt and Sierra and South. Sew your sweatbands properly. And if you don't know what that means, I know loads of us have got videos out there on doing the sweatbands. It makes a huge difference to the structure of the hat, having a properly fitted sweatband. And I know it sounds daft, but blocking the hat a size bigger than your sweatband. Because I've been asked about that before as well, where people say, oh, I've bought the block, I'm 57 centimeters, for instance, and I've made the hat in 57 and I've put the sweatband in and it's really tight. But it's now a 56, depending on the thickness of the leather in the sweatband. So yeah, I read this might have been on the Fedora Lounge where someone worded it as make the hat fit the sweatband. The sweatband fits the head, the hat fits the sweatband. That's probably the easiest way to put it, but that can fix a lot of headaches immediately.
The Fedora Lounge.
Yeah.
That's interesting. I haven't heard of that.
Not for a long time. I thought you were going to say haven't heard of it. I was like, what?
No. That was my go-to place for a long time.
Yeah, I think
but
most hat makers probably been long-time lurkers on those forums.
Do you still lurk?
Occasionally, because sometimes I might just be searching for something, and something from the Fedora Lounge will probably come up in the first 10 results of a search on anything to do with hat making. It's guaranteed someone's asked that question in the Fedora Lounge. There's very rarely a good answer in there, but sometimes you find things that you weren't even looking for. It's usually just people going on about FEPSA and Winchester and what's best. That's probably the biggest topic that I see pop up from Fedora Lounge.
The battle continues.
Yeah.
And any final thoughts that you would like to share with us?
Just find your niche, your idea, and just go with it. Even if you don't think other people are going to think it's cool, if you think it's cool, do that. Doesn't matter about anything else. Don't be afraid to ask other hat makers questions like myself. Like I said, there are some things I will not tell you, but to do with the things that I do videos on, which is the core of making a hat, I'm happy to talk about any of those processes on how to make a really good hat. But don't be scared to ask any other hat makers. The knowledge is only known by a few people. It needs to be kept alive. We need to keep encouraging new hat makers, encouraging each other to really just keep this craft alive. Yeah.
Excellent, mate. Yeah, you've been very generous with your tips and your thoughts, and mate, I'm so happy to have had this conversation.
No, it's been amazing speaking to you.
Yeah, I've been looking forward to it all week. Where can people find you? I know you've got a brand new website, but you've also got Instagram. If someone's looking at or wants to see your work,
yeah, so my brand new website is paulventressbespokehatters.com. And my Instagram, I've got it written down here. So it's on my list in case I forgot, because I knew you were going to ask that as well. So my handle on Instagram is paul.ventress_hatter.
Outstanding. Yes, mate. So all of you out there, go over and check Paul out and give him a follow on Instagram. Don't ask him too many questions. Do a little bit of research first.
One bit of, I do have a bit of advice. Because this really helped me. Watching videos on other hat makers is one thing, but having a little bit of literature to kind of go with that is important. So I bought the Scientific Hat Renovating and Finishing book. It is really, really a useful book to have. If you read that book and then watch videos on some of the custom hat makers, it can really sort of tie things together, giving you that worded description of actually what's going on in those videos. So any new hat makers out there, you can pick it up on Amazon, I think like £15 in British pounds, so maybe about $20 ish, something like that. It's really worth a read. Definitely worth it.
Great tip. Yeah. Well, thank you very much, Paul.
Thank you.
It's been an absolute pleasure meeting you properly, and yeah, love having a chat with you, mate.
Brilliant. It's been awesome, mate. Thank you so much.
Look forward to catching up again soon.
All right, take it easy.
All right, thank you for listening to this episode with Paul Ventress. If you want to check out Paul's work, head on over to his new website, paulventressbespokehatters.com, and follow him on Instagram at paul.ventress_hatter. If you like this episode and want to hear more, follow us on Spotify or Apple Podcasts to keep up to date with the upcoming shows, and feel free to give us a 5-star rating and share this episode on your social media. You can also find us at Instagram at the Hatmakers Podcast. I've got some future episodes lined up with Braden from Patterson Hat Co. and also with Jay from Coup de Tête. If you're in need of some hat blocks or hat making tools, check out our sponsor, Hatblocks Australia, at hatblocksaustralia.com.au or over on Instagram at Hatblocks Australia. You can also catch our interview with Daryl from Hatblocks Australia on episode number 5 of the Hatmakers Podcast. My name is Jack Savage, and you can check out my hats at Creatures of the Wild Unknown. Thanks for tuning into this one, and look forward to catching you on the next show. So until then, keep on hatting.